Okay, just gonna set my timer. Okay, so I hope you spent a few minutes looking at these phrases. These are all phrases, and having a gerund after each one. If you want to write them down and send them to me, I would love it. You can also record yourself into WhatsApp. So you don't have to pick all of them, but pick three of them, four of them. Pick some of these phrases and either write them down, your answers, right? Or you can record your answers and send them on WhatsApp. Okay, so I'm very curious to see what we come up with. We might have very similar answers or maybe very different answers, but definitely pick 3 or more to discuss. Okay, so we're going to look at some words because we're going to do a reading, and I always like to share with you the words before we read, so when we're reading, we are comfortable and we understand what these words mean. So our reading is more fluent and we can comprehend better. Okay, so we're going to preview some vocabulary. So the first word and phrase is credit card, and I think we are pretty familiar with this word, credit card, but I wanted to put it down there just in case we're not exactly sure. Okay, some people have credit cards, some people don't have credit cards. So I just added that on there. Okay, oops. Okay, here we go. All right, the next one is debt counselor. And debt, I think I said this word before last week, debt has a silent B. So we don't have the B sound, it's debt. Can you say that? Debt. Debt counselor. So even if we don't know exactly what this means, we know what debt is, right? And I think we do. We'll go over it. And a counselor is a person, right? A counselor is a person who talks to you and helps you. So we can try to figure out the meaning if we've never seen this word before. Okay. The next one is family budget. Well, we definitely know what family is. I don't know if we know what budget is. Think about if you know what a budget is. I will give you a hint. It has to do with money. Okay. And saving. Okay. And spending. Okay, so we'll talk about this. Interest rates. Many of you are familiar if you own a house or a car, or if you have a credit card, you know what interest rates are, but maybe you don't. So we will discuss these. Minimum payments. We know what payments are. I'm not sure if we know what minimum and maximum. Minimum is the least amount. And payment, we know when we make a payment, like we pay our bills. Okay, so I'm going to give you these definitions, and you might want to write these down in your notebook. So this is a good time maybe to take a pen or pencil and a notebook, and we can write down the words and the definitions. Okay, so these are the definitions. So I have here, maybe they're a little bit out of order, but that's okay. The first one was credit card, right? Credit card. And a credit card is just a small plastic card, right? That allows you to buy something, right? You buy something now and you pay for it later, right? Usually at the end of the month, the beginning of the month, you pay for it later. So you still have to pay for it. It feels like maybe you're not paying for it, but you do have to pay for it. And if you don't pay for it, the bills start to add up, right? But it allows you to buy something now that maybe you can't afford, and then you can pay for it later in smaller amounts. Okay, number 2 is interest rate. The rate or percentage, right? When we talk about percentage, like 4%, 5%, 20%, right, of interest that you must pay each month on a credit card balance. So credit cards we have to be a little careful with, right? Because it's not just the amount of the cost of the item, there's also interest that builds up, and that's a little bit extra that we have to pay. And depending on the interest rate, this will tell us if we have to have a smaller payment or a bigger payment. Sometimes the interest rates are very high and our payments become very hard to pay for. Very, very difficult to actually pay for. Okay, number 3, minimum payment. And minimum, think about mini, right? Mini, something that's mini is small, right? And maximum is big. So minimum payment is the smallest payment you can make each month on a credit card. And the credit card companies usually tell you what the minimum payment is. This means it's going to take you a longer time to pay, right? But you are not spending as much each month, right? Because you are giving the smallest amount. Okay, number 4, debt counselor. And remember, I said a counselor is a person who helps, right? And there's all different types of counselors, but a debt counselor is a person who helps you solve financial problems. If you are having any financial problems, a debt counselor can help you fix those problems. And a lot of times it's free. You just have to ask for help, right? And they can help you with your credit card payments if you are in debt, if you are having big money, financial problems. It is very smart to go to a debt counselor. Okay, and number 5, family budget. Okay, so a family budget is a spending plan, right? How much is going to go to groceries, right? How much is going to go for entertainment and fun, right? How much are we going to spend on clothes? And you can do this weekly, you can do this monthly, you can do this by the year, but this is a spending plan that a family makes for itself. So your family can make a budget, right? And you could say, we have this amount of money and we are not going to spend it on this, right? We want to save. We want to save for maybe a vacation one day or save for college for our kids. So anyone can make a budget. There are many tools online that can help you make a family budget. Okay, so I hope you have these words written down because we will be reading an article that has these vocabulary words. Some of them might be familiar to you. You've heard them before. You've seen them. Some of them maybe you've never seen before. But this will help you get into the reading and know that the reading has something to do with money, right, and credit cards, and maybe some problems because this debt counselor is involved. So maybe some problems dealing with money. Okay, so this article is called A Credit Card Nightmare. Nightmare. Do you know this word, nightmare? I think you do. Your children have had them. You have had them. This is when we go to sleep and we have a bad dream, a very, very bad dream. Okay, and maybe sometimes we use this word nightmare to mean something that's happening in life that's very bad, right? Something that's happening in our real lives, not when we're sleeping, that's really, really bad. Sometimes it's an actual nightmare, right? You go to sleep, you're worried all day, and then you go to sleep and you have a nightmare, right? But this is something that's actually happening in real life. Okay, so I think we should first just look at the pictures, right? And look at the title, right? So we have a man with his wallet open, and he has a lot of cards in here, maybe too many credit cards in here, right? And then we have a couple here, right? Like a man and a woman, a couple, right? And they look happy, they look in love. Okay, so let's look at the questions before we start. It says, what problem did the people have? So there's definitely a problem, right? Especially with the title, we know, credit card nightmare, right? And how did they solve it? So that's good. They solved it, right? So they had an answer to their problem. So first we want to know, what is the problem? And second, how did they solve it? Okay, so I'm going to read it first. It might be hard for you to see on the screen, but maybe if you bring it close to you, I'm going to read it, and then I can play it for you too. I have a player we can play. Okay, so you can just follow along with me and listen. And if you have any questions, you can write them down, maybe jot them down. Okay, Sun Hee and Joseph Kim got their first credit card a week after they got married. At first, they paid off the balance every month. Okay, at first, this is making me think something, right? At first. Okay, the couple's problems began after they bought a new house. Okay, if anyone has a house, maybe you know this. Maybe you know that once you buy a house, you start to want to buy other things, right? And fill up the house. All right, they bought new furniture, a big screen television, and 2 new computers. Wow. To pay for everything, they applied for more and more credit. Okay, so this means they applied for many credit cards. Soon, they had 6 different credit cards, and they were more than $18,000 in debt. Okay, so this means that they owed this money. This money is not paid for, right? This money is money that they need to pay back. $18,000 in debt. Okay, so that's pretty bad. All right, it was a nightmare, says Mrs. Kim. The interest rates were 19% to 24%. Our minimum payments were over $750 a month. Okay, this is just for their things, right? Not for their food, not for their house, right? This is just for the things inside the house. Okay. We both got second jobs, but it wasn't enough. I was so worried about paying off the debt, I cried all the time. Wow. Okay. Luckily, the Kims found a solution. They met Dolores Delgado, a debt counselor. With her help, they looked at all of their living expenses and made a family budget. They combined their 6 credit card payments into 1 monthly payment with lower interest rates. Now, their monthly
Page
budget...
90, exercise 2.
I didn't mean to do that. Sorry. Now, their monthly budget for all living expenses is $3,400. Together, they earn $3,900 a month. That leaves $500 for paying off their debt. We've cut up our credit cards, says Mr. Kim. No more expensive furniture. Now we know credit cards are dangerous. Oh, okay, so I'm going to play it so you hear it one more time. But think about this. As you're listening, what problem did the people have? I think we know. And how did they solve it? Thankfully, luckily, they solved the problem. Okay. Many people don't solve the problem, and they end up losing their house, losing the things in their house. But luckily, they solved the problem. Okay, so let's just listen, and if you can follow along, that would be great.
Page 90, Exercise 2.
A credit card nightmare. Soon he and Joseph Kim got their first credit card a week after they got married. At first, they paid off the balance every month. The couple's problems began after they bought a new house. They bought new furniture, a big screen television, and 2 new computers. To pay for everything, they applied for more and more credit. Soon, they had 6 different credit cards, and they were more than $18,000 in debt. It was a nightmare, says Mrs. Kim. The interest rates were 19% to 24%. Our minimum payments were over $750 a month. We both got second jobs, but it wasn't enough. I was so worried about paying off the debt, I cried all the time. Luckily, the Kims found a solution. They met Dolores Delgado, a debt counselor. With her help, they looked at all of their living expenses and made a family budget. They combined their 6 credit card payments into 1 monthly payment with a lower interest rate. Now, their monthly budget for all living expenses is $3,400. Together, they earn $3,900 a month. That leaves $500 for paying off their debt. We've cut up our credit cards, says Mr. Kim. No more expensive furniture. In 5 years, we can pay off our debt. Now we know. Credit cards are dangerous.
Okay. Okay, so let's just check our understanding. Since we read this 2 times, we should be able to understand the story. Okay, so let's look. Number 1, what word in the article means terrible experience? And we can go back to the article if we need to. What word in the article means terrible? We have to know the word terrible, right? Terrible experience. So we know terrible, I think we do, means very bad, very, very bad. And I think I said that the word nightmare in the title, right? The word nightmare we can use it not just like a dream, but in real life. A nightmare is a terrible experience. So the word nightmare. What is the main idea of the article? So remember this phrase, main idea. What is this article all about, right? So what is a credit card nightmare all about? Can you say that in one sentence? Okay. And number 3, when did Mr. and Mrs. Kim get their first credit card? Do you remember without looking back? Do you remember when did they get their first credit card? I think it was early on in their relationship. Let's see. The first sentence, right? Soon he and Joseph Kim got their first credit card a week after they got married. Oh, sounds like it was a good idea, but maybe they got too many, right? Maybe 1. Maybe if they just stopped at 1, they got 6 in total. So the first one right after they got married, a week after they got married. Okay, when did their problems begin? So think about that. When did their problems begin? It didn't begin with the first credit card. Let's see, their couple's problems began after they bought a new house. Okay, so they bought a new house, and that's when the debt started adding up, right? They started to buy things for the house, right? They bought new furniture, a big screen television, and 2 computers. And they couldn't pay for it with 1 credit card, so they applied for more and more credit. So that's when it happened, right after they bought their house. Okay. How did they pay for everything? Well, they didn't, right? They applied for credit. They didn't pay for everything, and that had really bad consequences, right? Because then they had a very big bills. So they paid for it on credit. Okay. Number 6, according to the article, what things did the Kims do to reduce their debt? So we have the word reduce. How did they lower their debt? What are some things? Not just one thing, many things, right? They did many things to reduce their debt. So one thing they did was they got extra jobs, right? They got 2 jobs each, and that wasn't enough. Then they spoke to a debt counselor, right? And they made a family budget, right? And they combined their credit cards into one payment with lower interest. So they asked for help. I think that's the most important, right? They didn't try it all by themselves. They asked for help from a debt counselor, and that debt counselor helped them reduce their debt. Okay, and then they cut up their credit cards, right? They're not using credit cards anymore.
Page 90.
Okay. And the last question, do you think the Kims will have financial problems in the future? What evidence supports your answer? Do you? Do you think that they will have financial problems? Some of you may say yes. I hope that they learned their lesson, right? Because it was a nightmare. It was a terrible experience for them. But whatever you decide, if it's a yes, they will explain how. And if it's a no, they'll be fine, right? Explain why. So I would love for you to talk and share your ideas on WhatsApp. Let's talk about this article. Let's talk about the things in this lesson. Let me know how I'm doing. Let me know if this is too slow, too fast, you don't understand, you like it. You are welcome to post comments on the YouTube channel. I'm so happy to be able to teach you. I miss you all so much.